Surprise, motherfucker.
He's back! Ooh!
Tonight's the night.
Dexter has been in a coma now for 10 weeks. And at this point, he's starting to have hallucinations. Now, this is a great way to start the show, if you ask me, because the first thing we get to see is a returning character, the Trinity killer, Mr. John Lithgow himself. Now, Trinity tells Dexter where he got it all wrong was he tried to have it all. He tried to have the best of both worlds. He tried to be the normal family man, the everyday average Joe, and feed his dark passenger at the same time, and that was a big mistake.
Your wife would still be alive.
Next, we get to see Miguel, another fan favorite and returning character, and this vision takes place in a graveyard. And Miguel's basically telling Dexter that anytime he tried to be normal, innocent people suffered as a result. And then we get a glimpse of some headstones with different names of people, innocent people like Doakes, LaGuardia, Rita, and his sister Deb. Now it's time to answer another question. What's Harrison been up to? Well, he's currently living and working at the Empire Hotel, where he's apparently living a normal life and rocking out to tunes on his AirPods. As we start to focus on what Harrison's up to, we meet one of the new characters whose name is Stefan. This guy's got a little bit of a creepy look to him, and what's interesting is the relationship between Stefan and Harrison reminds me a little bit of Dexter and Doakes, where Stefan kind of looks at Harrison and gives him these looks like he doesn't trust him or he thinks something's off about him. And I really like the callbacks and Easter eggs and the little hints towards New Blood and the OG series, like when Harrison throws the trash bag on the pile of other trash bags.
Authorities have located at least 30 bags so far.
Now, Harrison appears to be the go-to guy at this hotel for recommendations, and we meet our first guest, Ryan, who comes off as creepy and kind of douchey, and he asks Harrison if he can fix his watch or find somebody to fix his watch for him, which comes into play later on, so we'll go back to that here in a minute. Interestingly enough, Harrison is also having hallucinations himself. He's standing on the elevator with a couple of guests, and the doors start to freeze over, and then he has this vision of a trail of blood through snow like an iron lake. And I imagine that is the trauma that he's experienced after killing his dad, which is something I didn't even question. Like, of course that's going to affect him. He's going to have doubts of whether he should have killed him or not. After that, we meet another hotel guest named Shauna. Harrison chops it up with her for a little bit, maybe even a little bit flirty, but their conversation's going to be important later on, so we'll get back to that. But then we switch back to Dexter, who's still in his coma at this point, and finally, Harry is back. The infamous Harry is there to give his son some direction and guidance. At this point, I'm starting to see the point of all these hallucinations because all of them are hinting towards Dexter, going for his son when he wakes up, that all is not lost and that it is important for him to get Harrison back in his life. And Harry basically tells him the same thing, that he needs to go get his son. His son doesn't need to grow up without a father, because look what happened to his brother Brian, the ice truck killer, who grew up without a mother or a father. And last but not least, surprise, motherfucker! The infamous Doakes returns. Now this is an interesting interaction because Doakes has never had a good thing to say about Dexter, ever. But we see him basically telling Dexter that deep down under all the crazy, creepy, psycho shit, he believes there is a little tiny itty-bitty kernel of good in him, and that he should go and get his son and be a father to him. Now, to be fair, this isn't really Doakes saying this, but either way, this was nice to see Doakes say something good to Dexter for a change. So back at the hotel with Harrison, we see that the douchebag guest from earlier, Ryan, now has the nice young lady, Shauna, hanging on him, and she looks to be out of it, drunk, drugged, or something. Harrison gets a vibe that something isn't right. Ryan tells Harrison that's his wife, and he knows that's bullshit because, like I said earlier, Harrison chopped it up with Shauna. He confronts Ryan about it not being his wife. Ryan, in other words, tells Harrison to mind his own business and just buzz off. And Harrison's trying. He keeps telling himself, this isn't my problem. Harrison then turns around, starts to walk away from the hotel room, and immediately starts to hear Shauna struggle. And that's game over. He bursts through the hotel door, confronts Ryan again, still at this point even offers him a solution and says, just let me take Shauna back to her room and we'll forget all this happened. This turns into a physical altercation. Eventually Harrison starts to get the better of this guy and Ryan submits and says, fine, go ahead, take her, because there'll be more girls anyways. Harrison starts to have a vision of the Hall of Fame of bodies that Kurt had back in Iron Lake and decides, you know what, I'm not gonna let this slide, grabs the back of a toilet and bashes Ryan's head in. Harrison has no idea what to do. He's got a few pointers in his memory from his dad, but other than that, mistakes have already been made. This is sloppy, this is bad. He puts his AirPods in, starts jamming music, and gets to work like it's a normal job. And I feel like through New Blood and so far through this, you kind of get these back and forths from the writers where they show you how Harrison is not like his dad, but then times where he is like his dad. Problem is, this kill is hella sloppy, way sloppier than Dexter's first kill in Original Sin. So there's a lot of improvising. He grabs some bags, some cleaner, he gets to work. He starts having some flashbacks of some of the instructions his dad gave him on how to properly dispose of a body. So he cuts him in 9 pieces like his dad said, but he doesn't realize upon doing so that as he's swinging, he throws some blood spatter up on the ceiling, which is obvious that we're supposed to see that because that's going to come into play later, I imagine. But then he puts the trash out, which immediately gets picked up by the trash guys, which is just all bad. This is just a complete disaster at this point. Back to the man of the hour. Dexter is now awake from his coma. He's in physical therapy. He starts to ask himself some of the same questions we have all had. Where the hell is Angela? Why is he not in a prison clinic? What is going on here? At this point, I'm getting impatient. I want these answers too. And right on cue, Teddy Reed walks in, one of the officers from New Blood. And boy, is the tension high because we have no idea. Dexter has no idea what he's there for. Is he there to arrest him, question him? This is what we've all been waiting for. It's all built up to this moment. I'm freaking out. Everybody else is probably freaking out. And then Teddy hands Dexter an envelope with a picture inside. And when he pulls it out, it's a picture of Angela and Iris. He flips it over and on the reverse side, it says, "We're even now. Get the hell out of Iron Lake."
Angela was so sorry about mistakenly arresting you for the murder of Matt Caldwell. She was even more sorry about shooting you. When she found that bullet hole in your cell, proved that Logan had shot at you.
Boom. There's the answer. That was so much for me to take in at that moment. I had to pause and I had to gather my thoughts. I literally had a mild panic attack at that point. That's a lot to soak in. Hang on. Okay. And in that moment, you're thinking Dexter's the luckiest guy in the whole wide world. The sheriff then brings the tension back in and says that now that he's acting sheriff, he has to do his duty. And at this point, we're wondering, is he still going to arrest Dexter anyways? No. He asked Dexter if he wants to press charges against the Iron Lake Sheriff's Station.
Do you want to press charges against the Iron Lake Sheriff's Department?
And he's like, no, I just want to move on. Yes, Dexter is one lucky son of a bitch. But at the same time, I think it speaks for his impact on the people he has relationships with. Because if you think back, anybody he got close to was willing to put up with or turn more of a blind eye to him than people that may not know him. For the most part, I'm not saying everybody. So I guess it kind of makes sense that since he was dating Angela and got close to her, also helped solve the case of Iris, gave her Kurt Caldwell and all that, that she came to the conclusion that it was best to just run away and let him go. Meanwhile, Ryan's body parts have now been found. Enter Detectives Wallace and Oliva, I believe it is. And that's one thing I love about this show is they always bring in these side characters that are also pretty intriguing themselves. Like you don't got to rely on just Michael C. Hall playing Dexter. There's always somebody else who's got some quirks or something interesting going on that's intriguing enough to make you want to see what they're going to do next. Anyways, they need to find the rest of the body parts because they need a head or a hand to identify the person. She notices that the specific bag that those parts were in had red ties on top, so she finds the other bags. They piece the body together. Now they have the identity of the victim, and then she notices that he's missing a watch. He's got like a tan line around where that watch was. Remember how I mentioned the watch earlier? Yep, this isn't good for Harrison. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Enter Detective Batista. And this is arguably one of the most tense moments in the entire episode, because now we're going to find out where Batista sits as far as how much he believes the accusation of him being the Bay Harbor Butcher, and now Dexter has to explain himself as to why he faked his death and everything else. The first thing Batista brings up is the phone call he received from Angela, letting him know that Dexter was in fact still alive.
Imagine my surprise when Chief Bishop called me out of nowhere and told me that you were alive.
He wanted to know why he faked his death, but then he brought up another interesting question that myself, and it seems like others, just completely forgot about, which is, why did you take Deb's body out of the hospital, and what did you do with her? And I think the reason we all forgot it is because we wanted to forget because of how terrible that finale was. Dexter tells Batista that he took Deborah's body out on his boat and drove into the eye of the hurricane. Well, the boat capsized, he lost Deb's body, and at that point, he realized he had lost his way and needed a fresh start, and that's why he faked his death and started the new identity of Jim Lindsay.
But why Jim Lindsay?
Batista still doesn't understand why he had to fake his death, why he couldn't just move away. And he explains like after what happened to Rita, what happened to Deb, his life was complete chaos and in shambles, and he just felt like he needed to start from scratch.
I needed a new start.
And then he pops the question we've all been waiting for.
Here we go.
I get this call from the chief of police here, and then she said the craziest thing. She intimated that you were the Bay Harbor Butcher.
By the time he arrived at Iron Lake the very next day, Angela had backtracked everything she said. She no longer thought he was the Bay Harbor Butcher. She made a mistake, and then she fled town. Now that raises multiple red flags, right? And then that made Batista start digging back into his memory. He started to think about the past and how LaGuerta told him in confidence that she knew for a certain that Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher. And then he said, but that was Doakes, right? And then he started bringing up Doakes' relationship with Dexter and some of the things and names he would call Dexter.
What was it he used to call you?
You fucking weirdo. Fucking creep job. Fucking freaktage.
And at this point, you can tell this is a full-on interrogation. And Dexter's playing it off like, yeah, he was always that way towards me, never had a good thing to say to me, like it was just kind of normal. And you know, I understand Angela taking everything back when he got there could be believable, but the fact that she then just vanished, like that, you could tell just did not sit right with Batista. Batista then informs Dexter that he went ahead and resurrected his original name and identity, and now he can go get a license and register to vote. And he says it as if this was a favor he was doing for Dexter.
I got some good news. You're officially alive.
You know, Dexter's like, oh, thanks, buddy. That's awful thoughtful of you. And at this point, man, you can cut the tension with the knife. And he knows that Batista's going to be out for him. And he even says to himself, maybe he resurrected his identity because you can't prosecute a dead man. Before Batista leaves, he says he'll be back tomorrow to visit him. And at this point, I think the gears are moving in Dexter's head. What's he going to do? How's he going to get out of this situation? And one thing I noticed that upon Batista leaving the clinic, he thanked Dr. Abrams, I believe his name was, for contacting him. And the doctor said, well, you know, I thought he needed a friend. How did he have his contact information? Where did that happen along the way? And are they going to bring that up later on and answer that question? Or is that just something I might be looking too deep into? I don't make these videos to point out all the things that are wrong or unrealistic. I make these videos because they're fun. I mean, the show in general is unrealistic. I don't care. I am invested in Dexter because I love the show. By this time, the cops have swarmed the Empire Hotel. They're running forensics inside of the hotel room. Harrison's getting a little too curious, decides to walk past the room, looks in the room, sees a vision of the guy Ryan that he killed, and knocks some shit over, alerts the detective.
Who's that?
His name is Morgan. Harrison Morgan.
I mean, this thing couldn't be any more messier. If he ever needed Dexter, it's now. Maybe it will overshadow some of the anger that he has towards him because he's so desperate for his dad's help at this point. Meanwhile, Dexter, still receiving his physical therapy, the nurse mentions to him that there were body parts found in New York. 9 pieces to be exact.
They found the body parts cut up into 9 pieces.
I generally cut them into 9 pieces.
He's almost certain that this has to be Harrison, and he knows now that he made some serious mistakes and he definitely needs his help. Luckily, one of the other patients in the clinic dies, which gives Dexter an opportunity to steal his vehicle and his things and get the hell out of Dodge. Now, all this is happening while Batista shows up to visit Dexter again. And Dexter needs to find a way to get out of this clinic, so he has to make a phony phone call to the clinic saying he's Detective Quinn to get Batista to walk on the other side of the room so he can sneak back into his room, turn the shower on, and escape through the window. And when Batista gets on the phone, nobody's there, obviously. But it made me wonder, is he going to ask who was it that said they called? And is she going to remember? Or is she going to say it was Detective Quinn? And is he going to check out that story? And the reason I'm saying that is I just would like to see him call Detective Quinn to ask him if he called him, because that leads to the potential that we will see the return of Detective Quinn 2. I know they haven't said anything about it, but a dude can dream, right? After the phone call, Batista goes and asks the nurse to check on Dexter again. She goes in, hears the shower running, comes back out and says he's still in the shower. Batista's like, it's been 45 minutes. So he bursts in the room, and that's when he discovers Dexter's not in the shower and he escaped through the window. Fuck. Dexter rolls out in his sweet new ride, makes a pit stop to a little local store, buys himself some gloves and clothes, and he is off to New York. Enter Uma Thurman. Now we see her character scoping out somebody's apartment. She breaks in. She's apparently looking for something. She's pulling off the medicine cabinet. She's looking in the air conditioner, which was kind of cool because that's where Dexter used to keep his blood slides. She eventually finds his hiding spot, which is in the ceiling. She gets up there, pulls it down, and it's a bunch of different people's licenses with blood on each one of them. So this is obviously a serial killer. And she leaves a box of money and what looks to be an invitation and puts that up with the bloody licenses up into the ceiling, and then makes a phone call and says, "Invitation delivered." This is what I assume to be the start of Peter Dinklage's universe and what he's got going on and his obsession for serial killers. And just before we wrap up the episode, we get to see Dexter enter New York. He pulls up to the Empire Hotel and he sees his son for the first time since the shooting standing outside of the hotel. And that is the end of episode 1. Channel 116 is going to be covering Dexter Resurrection on a weekly basis. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, please do me a giant favor and hit that subscribe button and tap that bell so you get notified when we put out new content. Also, let us know in the comments below how you feel about Resurrection so far. Thanks for stopping by, guys. We'll see you next time. Channel 116, out.